William Tilden was born in Philadelphia in 1893. Three of Tilden's siblings had died before he was born. Between the age of 15 and 22, Tilden had to deal with the deaths of both his parents and his one remaining sibling, a brother. In 1916, grief-stricken and something of a loner, Tilden decided to focus on being a successful tennis player. Tilden was a late starter, but by the time he was 25 in 1918, he was beginning to make his mark on the world of tennis. That year he was runner-up in the US Championships at Forest Hills, New York, to Rob Lindley Murray, and the following year he lost in the final to Bill Johnston. Johnston had exploited Tilden's weak backhand. Tilden was determined to improve his backhand, and he did. At Wimbledon in 1920, still held at the old ground at Walpole Road, Tilden beat Gerald Patterson in the challenge round to take his first Grand Slam title at the age of 27. As Tilden faced Johnston again in the US Championships final in 1920, a Navy two-seater plane appeared over the courts. These were the early days of aviation, and planes could often be unreliable. During the third set, the plane began circling the court, much to the annoyance of spectators. A passenger leaned out of the plane with a camera. Then the plane's engine failed and plunged to earth a few hundred feet from the court in a vacant lot, killing both men on board. The match continued during this tragedy, and according to Tilden, only a handful of spectators left to see the wreckage of the plane. Tilden won in 5 sets. In 1921, Tilden won the World Hard Court Championships at St. Cloud, Paris, against John Washer. Hard court was an old-fashioned term for clay. Tilden retained his Wimbledon title in the challenge round against Brian Norton in 5 sets, saving 2 match points in the process. This was the final year of the challenge round and the final year at Walpole Road. At the US Championships, held for the first of 3 consecutive years at Tilden's hometown of Philadelphia, Tilden faced Johnston as early as the round of 16 because there was no seeding. Tilden won in 4 sets. Seeding would become commonplace in events as tennis grew in popularity in the 1920s. Tilden beat Wallace Johnson in the final of the 1921 championships. Then Bill retained the title in 1922, 1923, 1924, when the event returned to Forest Hills, and 1925, beating Johnston in every final. However, by the late 1920s, Tilden's dominance was waning. He was in his 30s by now, and a group of talented young Frenchmen were taking the tennis world by storm. At the French Championships in 1927, Tilden had 2 match points in the final against René Lacoste. One of these, Tilden thought he had served a line-clipping ace, only for Lacoste's Davis Cup teammate Henri Cochet, who was calling that line, to call out. Tilden lost in 5 sets. Lacoste retired due to ill health in 1929, and Cochet did not play the US Championships that year, and Tilden beat Frank Hunter in the final in 5 sets. At Wimbledon 1930, Tilden beat Allison in the final in straight sets to win his 3rd and last Wimbledon title at the age of 37. At the end of the year, Tilden became the first Grand Slam men's singles champion to turn professional and worked tirelessly to establish the professional circuit. He won major pro tours against Karol Kozela in 1931 and Hans Nusslein in 1932 and 1933. In 1934, the 41-year-old Tilden lost to the much younger Ellsworth Vines. Tilden won the French Pro in 1934 and the US Pro in 1931 and 1935. By the late 1930s, Tilden was past his prime but was still a big drawing card. A lot of the money he earned was squandered in failed theatrical ventures. His stage was the tennis court, and his on-court theatrics kept spectators enthralled. In addition to playing, Tilden was also sometimes a promoter. Tilden was keen to arrive as early as possible at the next place to organize the forthcoming matches. On one occasion, Fred Perry recalled Tilden passed him in his car going very fast. A few miles along the road, Perry passed Tilden's upturned car. Tilden survived the accident unscathed. In 1941, aged 48, he played his farewell tour against Don Budge and lost easily. The first of his farewell tours had been in 1933 against Nusslein, but Tilden never did retire from the game he loved. In December 1946, Tilden was arrested, and in January 1947, he began a sentence of 7 months in jail for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. In 1949, Tilden served a further 10 months for a second offense against a minor. Tilden played a tour with George Littleton Rogers, Pancho Gonzalez and Frank Parker in 1951, but he was denied entry to play matches in Canada due to his criminal convictions. Shunned by many of his former friends, Tilden continued to play tennis in places where venues would allow him to play. By now 60 years old, Tilden was all packed and ready to travel to the 1953 US Championships at Cleveland. However, he was found dead in bed in his apartment of a heart attack. The Golden Twenties was a boom era for sports, with stars such as Tilden, baseball's Babe Ruth, boxer Gene Tunney, swimmer Johnny Weissmuller, ice hockey player Bill Cook, golfers Bobby Jones and Walter Hagen, and cyclists Fred Spencer and Charlie Winter. However, Tilden died virtually penniless and alone.
For an American twist service, you take your position sideways to the net. The racket drops behind the head and back. The ball is tossed to the left of the head. The racket comes up from the left, meets it, travels over it, and out to the right of the body. It ends on the right of the body.
Mr. Tennis, as far as I was concerned, it's my personal opinion, was Big Bill Tilden. That he dominated the game in the United States for 10 years. He was an enigma. He knew exactly what he wanted. He was always fighting with the association. But when it was announced that Big Bill Tilden was going to play, people used to flock to see him. Comparatively large numbers for those particular days. When you played Tilden, you got the feeling that there was one man on the tennis court, and that was Bill Tilden. And that the only reason you were there was the fact you had the honor to play against him. He didn't sort of knock you right off the court. He had a good serve. He could hit the ball in the first serve or the second serve as well in 2 or 3 directions with the same throw of the ball, which made life very difficult. Very good ground shots, not a good volleyer, but his mastery of the court and tactics was beyond comprehension. You were always thinking when you were playing. He'd give you long ones and short ones and angled ones and high ones and low ones. And you really didn't know half the time where you were. He hit perfect continental shots. And I asked him, I said, I thought you told me, Bill, the shot wasn't worth anything. He said, after playing you so many times, I discovered that was the only grip to use, the continental grip, for a wide forehand drive low on the forehand. And I felt that I was not a complete player until I'd mastered it. And he was 53 at that time. These days, you don't get the kids learning new shots at 25.